Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. So, just ruminating on all this stuff. AIM says, yes, if you boil it down, altruism has at its root irrationality. Irrationality is the lower concept from which altruism is abstracted and is genetically dependent on. Okay, agreed that altruism is an ethical concept. I'm saying it might not even be a valid concept. You know, there are psychological egoists who say anything you do because you chose it, therefore you chose everything you do, even hurting yourself or jumping off a bridge. There are psychological egoists. And those are the people that Ayn Rand was talking about when she said that the motivation for your action doesn't change the nature of your action. So just because you're motivated in some way is actually meaningless, according to Ayn Rand. That is why we have to use our rational mind to make sense of reality and figure out what our actions really do mean in the real reality. Not just go with our feelings or our first impulse or a whim or something like that. Irrationality is the lower concept from which altruism is abstracted. My point is going to be that altruism is not a concept. It is a package deal or an anti-concept that doesn't actually exist, and its real nature is simple irrationality. Now, my evidence for that is that every single society in all of history were both altruistic and irrational. Why were they all altruistic? That's the sticking point that started my whole mind down this road that we're on right here. Why is every single society in history not 100% altruistic, Ed Powell? All right, they had some egoism. To the extent they were successful, they had some egoism. But why did every single society, bar none, come up with the idea of sacrificing the individual to the greater good? And it's because either you use reason or you are irrational. And using reason is a very specific course. There's a dump truck out front, and it's going to be very noisy for the next minute or two. Okay, if you're simply arguing that irrationality and altruism have the same basis, I don't think any objectivist would find disagreement with that. Okay, good point. But how is altruism different from irrationality? How is it actually different? Now, Sibo says, Rand called Nietzsche both irrational and a rebel against altruism, case closed. You keep sneaking in self-destructive as a synonym of altruism, which is invalid. And I say, in what way is it invalid? How is self-destructive not a synonym of altruism? Sibo replies, I simply mean that as I see some others have pointed out, self-destruction is not the same as altruism. Now see, you guys can't point out how they're different. It's just motivation. I think what we're getting to here is we're just identifying for the first time in objectivist literature, in the objectosphere, let me say, because we are not involved in objectivist literature, neither of us is Rand or Peikoff. But in the objectosphere, we are appreciating fully for the first time that altruism is an invalid concept, and we're chewing on the nature of what the concept of altruism really does mean, because it does not mean benevolence towards other people, right? That's its supposed face value meaning. Clearly that's not what it means. So what really does it mean? And that's what we're chewing on here, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Now, my favorite comment so far is by Chandler. He says, "This makes sense to me. I like the example of sacrificing on a desert island. It really emphasizes the true nature of altruism. It boils the concept down, and from there I can now equate altruism with irrationality." Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Chandler, and now I take Chandler and I now challenge you, ladies and gentlemen, to find me a situation where you could say that was altruistic but not irrational, or it was irrational but it failed to be altruistic, or failing that, an altruist couldn't have done it. It was irrational but no altruist would do it. And I will find you a case where an altruist will actually have done that. Why do they just drive around my block and they just go around my house? They park in front of my house and they drive around my block all afternoon, I swear to God. I would close my windows, but it's nice outside. Oh my God, isn't there a free market way we could do this? Jeez and rice. Okay, what? All right, so that's my challenge to those of you who don't want to allow me to equate altruism and irrationality. I think altruism, on its face, it comes from irrationality. I just can't figure out how to separate them. All right? I cannot figure out how to separate altruism and irrationality. That's now my challenge to you. Find an altruistic action that's rational, or find an irrational action that an altruist couldn't do. Say no altruist would do this irrational action. Now, if you can find either of those examples, either one, then you'll start to have a case, and I'll have to separate these two concepts out again. But until we have some reason to separate them, I'm not going to be able to pry them apart again. It's just for the purpose of ethics, and when you use the term altruism in ethics instead of the term irrational, you're telling a little lie. All right, Mr. Cropper out. Please patronize me, $5-10 a month. Throw me a small donation, or jump on as a regular, monthly contributor. Either way, you'll be able to help me continue and do more of this sort of stuff. I will be returning to Kant. I did put a video up of Kant this morning. That's right. So Kant has returned, and that is now back in the works.